Hi class, we're going to be working with chapter 4.9a lesson today on the Pythagorean theorem. This is where we actually use square roots. First of all, just a reminder that this only works in right triangles. When we talk about right triangles, we talk about legs and the hypotenuse. The legs make up the sides of the right angle, which is normally going to be marked with one of these kind of square marks that you'll notice. You probably remember those from years past. The hypotenuse, by definition, is the side opposite the right angle. The Pythagorean theorem actually shows how the legs and the hypotenuse are related. And remember, again, this is only in a right triangle. The actual wording says the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. The formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are legs and c is the hypotenuse. If we look at our first example, we are going to be looking at a right triangle, and the first thing you have to do is to decide whether or not you are finding an hypotenuse or a leg. In this case, we see the square, and we notice that we have a side of 8 and a side of 15, which means we are really looking for the hypotenuse. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. We always write our formula down. Then we substitute. It really does not matter which one you call A and which one you call B, because when you add them, it's commutative, so it's not going to matter a whole lot. And we don't know c squared. I guess I have a tendency to put my smallest number first. That's just me. Okay? So then we figure out the squares. 8 squared is 64. 15 squared, you found out the other day, is 225. Now, this is where I have a tendency to use my reflexive principle, and I switch it around and say c squared equals 289. Okay, sidebar. The square root of c squared equals c. The square root of a squared equals a. And the square root of b squared is going to equal b. Now, I don't want c squared, I want c. Therefore, I have to take the square root of 289. And I think to myself mentally, the square root of c squared is c. Then I show that I'm taking the square root of 289, which is 17. Then I look at my labels. I have inches. When I move on to sample B, you can try this one. Hit pause and you can try it. Okay, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Substituting 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared, because again, I'm looking for the hypotenuse. 25 plus 144 equals c squared, so c squared is going to be 169. Now the other day we know that this is a perfect square, and I'm going to get 13. Now if you'll notice back here, they have no label listed, so then I have to use a label called units. C is a little different, because this time I have the hypotenuse, I have a leg, I don't have the length of a leg. So I'm going to substitute into the formula differently. I always let my unknown side be a squared, and I don't pay any attention to what the book says. If they tell you a is this, find b. I just let it all be a. And that way I'd always have my variable first in the formula, and that's the way I like it. So then I'm going to have 6 squared equals 9 squared. So a squared plus 36 equals 81. Well, you know very well from what we've been doing this year, you've got to solve this equation. So a squared plus 36 minus 36 equals 81 minus 36. A squared is going to equal 45. The square root of a squared is a. I'm going to take the square root of 45, which is not a perfect square. So this is where you use that calculator, use that square root key that we talked about the other day, and you end up with 6.7 because we're going to round off to the nearest tenth. D is very similar. You're trying to find a leg, so you do it and then I'll go over it. Always start with that formula, folks. I don't know a leg. I'm going to let it be a squared. I don't really care if the book tells me find b. I'm going to let it be a. 10 squared equals 20 squared. Okay? A squared plus 100 equals 400. Hopefully you didn't have to use a calculator. That 20 times 20 is 400. Now, solve the equation. And a squared is going to be 300. I want a though, so that means I have to take the square root of 300. And again, using my calculator, it's not going to come out evenly. And again, I will round to the nearest tenth, 17.3 meters. Now, you've got to be careful, folks, because maybe in the assignment it will say hundredth. So you have to make sure to watch your directions very carefully. And that is the conclusion of lesson 498 for today. Scouting out.